It's your boy G, new day, new goals, let's own it. And today's episode, we're gonna be meeting up with Pfaff, AKA Drama. You may recognize Drama from the Fantasy Factory, one of the greatest shows ever. But we're gonna talk about Drama, the entrepreneur, the young hustler, the shaker and mover that really went from a young kid in Akron, Ohio, skateboarder, just really was all in, passionate about skateboarding. Talking about his story, how he went from Akron, Ohio with his dream to move to LA, came here with nothing, was homesick, didn't know what he was gonna do, to meet up with his cousin, the one and only Rob Dyrdek, one of the greatest entrepreneurs, someone I really look up to. And we're gonna talk about how Rob inspired him. He started to work under Rob, started to get mentorship from Rob, got on the Fantasy Factory, and then figured out his journey on how he was able to leverage that platform to launch his own brand, Young and Reckless. For me, I did first come across you as Drama,
Yep.
Fantasy Factory. Rob was one of the guys that I always inspired me as one of the first mentors that I saw doing it as an entrepreneur.
Go ahead and take a look.
Cannon, come on.
Yeah!
It's a cannon, man.
Yeah! Yes! You jumped that motorcycle without a second thought. I put you in a box that exploded. You didn't even question me.
What was interesting for me, seeing you build your business during that time frame, and that you didn't, like a lot of people, get caught up into the fame aspect and trying to be famous. It was more like, no, you're trying to be, build a business, be an entrepreneur. Maybe part of the reason why so many people nowadays think it's the cool thing to actually become one. Because you're one of the first people on television as young millennial. And that was what you were doing. It was cool. But I want to know kind of before the show, who were you growing up, and how did skating inspire you? And did you think that you were going to be someone who would become this businessman that you are today?
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and my life was just dedicated to skateboarding. It's all I wanted to do. I didn't really have, the good and bad of that was it sort of kept me out of trouble. I had a passion, but I couldn't really think beyond skateboarding. So it's not like I grew up thinking of all these businesses I would start. And to be honest, part of the reason why I, tell the stories I tell is because you're sort of, in these small towns, you're sort of told that you can't be that. That's too big for you. Those people are superheroes and you're just not that, right? So I never really had expectations of being much of anything, I was always very crafty and sort of a hustler, selling bike parts and, part of the way that I moved, I always tell people this, there was 3 places where I got money to move to LA. One was from my graduation money. The other was from stealing iPods at Best Buy and selling them at school. I had this whole racket where I knew how to steal them and blah, 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 and I would sell them at school. And then the third was I went and filmed, I got really into filming and taking photos, and I filmed a video of all of my friends skating and made a skateboard video of the Akron crew. And then I went around to all the skate shops in Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati and sold them the video to say here's what the Akron crew's doing, right? So we had a big premiere and we did all this stuff, and that probably made me a couple $1,000s, So that's how I moved here. So I was crafty, but I didn't have these high expectations. I really moved here with the goal of getting a studio apartment and maybe working in the skateboard industry as a filmer and drinking a bunch of beer and not having any rules. That was my dream. What I was going to do is I was going to get a job at a skate shop, just because I knew that was sort of step one. That's when I sort of started spending a lot of time with my cousin Rob, and because we didn't really know each other very well growing up. And so when I moved here, I was like, hey, can I stay with you for a month? Just give me a month to look for apartments and blah, blah, blah. He's like, sure, why not? So I started spending a lot of time with him. We ended up getting along really well, and it just so happened that his personal assistant quit like the day before I was supposed to go back to Ohio. And so he came out and he's like, hey, do you want to be my assistant? And I was literally 18 years old. I was like, I don't even, like this whole city just seemed like chaos to me, right? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I don't even know what an assistant does. I don't know what that means. And all of his friends were like, don't do it. It's going to ruin your relationship with him. Because when he works, he's very, he's just very, he knows what he wants and he's very demanding and he's very, you know what I mean? Like he can be really funny, but he can also be very on it, right? And so they're like, don't do it, it's gonna ruin your relationship with him and you know, whatever. But I decided, I mean, here's your options. You go work at a skate shop, you know where that's gonna lead you.
Right.
Or at least be an assistant, mess it up for 6 months, be terrible at it, but the amount you're gonna learn just from doing that is probably, you know, obviously way beyond working at a skate shop. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And that's where that journey sort of started.
Has he ever had a real job?
No, he's fresh out the minivan from high school to the big leagues. I'm struggling. Struggling to get your work done.
I saw Rob was obviously making millions of dollars from DC and from sponsors, right? And then Big Black started a clothing line and he made a couple $1 million off of that thing. So I saw this crazy potential. So I went out and started asking for money for sponsors. And I remember like I was getting like $200 from Echo or something a month, you know? And I was trying to collect, but I was just low enough on the totem pole that nobody would mess with me. And so that's what got me sort of frustrated. And I was like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it myself then, right? Like I don't care if it's a online only, like whatever, I'm just gonna create something because I want somehow to fit this into this machine, right?
Create it.
So anyway, so that's what pushed me to really start it. Had somebody just said, shut up, here's $500 a month, I would have been thrilled at the time, but once again, I would have been back in Ohio now. I remember, for the sake of the story, the first season came around and I didn't have the trademarks. And so you couldn't put it on TV, on MTV without trademarks. And I was devastated because that meant we couldn't do an episode about it. I couldn't start coming up with any ideas. There was literally nothing. And that's why if you watch the first episode, I'm wearing Diamond and Rogue status and DTA. And secretly I was so mad, right? Like this should be mine. I'm giving them all this free stuff, whatever. And because I didn't know, like I said, it could have got canceled after that. And there's my shot and now it's done. And so luckily, it worked. It got picked up for another season. By that time, I had all the trademarks and everything handled. I went in, I said, here's what Drama's doing, you know, and that gave me the lane to put it all over my office and sort of start that. And that's where Rob is so brilliant. And even everyone on the show is so brilliant because they did such a good job at sort of translating what I was really going through into TV form.
Dude, you can't be late to your first t-shirt release party.
But it's like that whole fashionably late thing. Like,
no, not when you're hosting. That's when you're going, not
And they did that so well with all the Fantasy Factory. So what I'm saying is like, all my little meetings were boring. All the little designs and sitting in my room scratching Y&R is boring. But creating a little office because that's a littler version of Rob's office because it's my mini mogul office and I'm about to be an entrepreneur is brilliant, right? Because that translates to the audience like, oh shit, this guy's starting a brand. And they did that so well. And so anyway, so that's when we filmed the first season. We filmed me jumping out of the building to prove I was reckless. We filmed all that stuff.
I remember that episode.
And I think we should say right now, if you don't jump out of the young and reckless, that I have to take over the brand, and I own it now 100%. Yes. 5, 3, 2, 1, young and reckless.
And so then what we did was we took, Dee and I, my partner, we took the DVD of the edited first episode with Y&R in it. Because they edit probably on average 2 or 3 months before it airs.
Okay.
So we took it, we drove it down to PacSun in Orange County, and we said, look guys, so here's the salesman thing again, right? The same way you said you have to put together the plan to pitch something, you have to put together this sort of inflated story to sell it. So we took it down there and we said, look, watch this episode. This is about to be the biggest brand. This is the biggest show, blah, blah, blah. We'll give it to you exclusively for 6 months. You just have to buy it for all doors and you have to have it up in the store the day after this episode airs.
Yeah.
So once again, thank God they took a risk too. They were like, all right, we'll do it.
Like for all those that are like trying to start a brand out there, like what does that even mean, right? Do they like they write a purchase order? Like, what does that look like? Is there a contract? Were you like, what did that feel like when that happened?
Yep. So here's a big thing. A lot of people ask me, and this is where this situation for me was unique, but there's value in me telling it. A lot of people ask me, well, where'd you get the investment? Well, who invested? Well, who took the risk? Because we were so crafty, and because I had the benefit of a TV show, which is why I tell people who are starting clothing brands, go find an influencer, build up a social media presence, like get the audience first and then give them product. Don't try to have product with no audience, right? So because I had those things, we were able to take that DVD down to PacSun, sell PacSun that was about to be the next biggest thing in the world, and it's all theirs, and all of my social media traffic and everything I say is gonna say PacSun.
Yeah.
You guys have it exclusively, but you have to put it in all doors, and you have to have signage, and it has to look like you guys are repping it. So the way that it looks is, they say, okay, cool. And then you're like, yeah, you drive home from Orange County, you're like, fuck yeah, we're fucking rich, and then you get back to the office, and a week or so you send them your line sheets, which at the time we had 3 graphics in 18 different colors, and they send you their purchase order. And what I'm getting at is, we were never in debt because we never had real product. All we had was the 20 shirts I wore on TV, and the wallpaper in my office was our only real expenses. So
you had the samples.
Yeah, we had the samples, and I wore the shit out of them. I gave them to everyone. We did photo shoots. We did all this stuff. And so then when they made their purchase order, it was essentially, it's a little bit more obviously difficult than this, but it was essentially like we were instantly profitable because we had an order and we filled it with our first real shipment of product. And it was a pretty decent size order. It was small units.
They did give you all the stores?
They did, and at the time it was like 650 stores or something, and it was small units, but it was, that's a lot of stores.
Why is it called Young and Reckless? You've got to be more reckless. You gotta live this brand.
Got my nice gear on, Young and Reckless here, looking pretty sharp.
I see the Young and Reckless brand everywhere now.
Young and Reckless, go cop the shirts, Young and Twisted, weird stores real soon. You feel me?
I want it to be a way bigger movement. I want it to be a worldwide brand.
So we're gonna go into his thoughts about college and why he thinks that, in college they teach you the rules, but in entrepreneurship teaches you how to break the rules.
One of the biggest things that sort of frustrates me, I guess, is, and not that, I don't like to complain too much about something that I'm not even attempting to fix. Maybe one day I'll be able to say I did something, but is just schooling in general and how people are educated in general in this country. And how quickly things are changing for job opportunities and what type of jobs are even available and how kids are being taught in high school. And I just think it's so mind-blowing how it's built to put kids in debt. It's built to give kids no dreams. We don't try to harness what kids' dreams are or passions are. We just sort of say, no, go to algebra and shut up, And I think one of the biggest things is that's why that frustration, as a side effect of that, not to get political, but is why our president, not my president, was able to run on, I'm going to bring factory jobs back and things like that these people have been educated for. And those jobs don't exist, right? People are coding, or people are working in tech, or people are whatever, doing all these different things, creating YouTube pages and creating content. And, there's kids making millions of dollars off of their Instagram pages. It's like, I just think that that's a huge flaw in our sort of system right now. That's a huge shame.
And it's interesting because once you started working again with like Rob and all this, like that became the schooling that really did help teach you the business.
That was my college 1,000,000%. And I was so lucky because I not only saw Rob. Rob has a very specific way of going through life and creating businesses and doing what he does. And then I went, when I found my business partners for Young and Reckless, they have a very different way of doing it. They're USC educated, very smart, had been in apparel for 10 years and very margin and numbers and operations driven, which is kind of the opposite of what Rob is. And then I met this guy who's in finance. And so it's like being able to soak all that up is like, there's no college that could have taught me that in any way. And
priceless.
It's learning how to navigate. You learn the rules in college. You don't learn how to break the rules in college, right? And I think the people who sort of break them or manipulate them or whatever are the ones who really become successful.
Drama, shout out to you. You're absolutely killing it. Modern day leader, cannot wait to collaborate. Everybody, make sure you engage with our community. Comment below. Let us know what you loved about the show. If there's someone you want to see on the show, make sure you comment and tag them. And make sure to check out Founders. We've been working on this project for over 2 years. We're making a lot of impact in our community in Newark. We're going to be expanding in 2018, and we want you to become a founder. We're going to have immersive experiences where we travel, we have workshops, and in all the online education, it's basically like a Netflix for entrepreneurs. So I hope to see you guys on the inside. There'll be a lot of exclusive content, and then weekly mentorship, live mentorship from me on a weekly basis. So hope to see you guys on the inside. And until next episode, it's your boy GA. Peace. New merch alert. I'm excited to announce that we are finally releasing our Leaders Create Leaders merchandise. All you have to do is head to the link in our description below and make sure to get it now because they're all in limited quantities. I want to repost you guys, so make sure if you're joining the squad, the hashtag LCL squad so I can find you and post you up.